Today is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2017, and I have more great news coming out of the Trump administration. Before he actually gets into office, he's still making good strides as far as bringing jobs to the American people. This comes after the whole carrier deal when you brought 700 to 1,000 jobs back to Indiana and the air conditioning manufacturing plant. And this is after the SoftBank situation where you have a Japanese investor bringing $50 billion in investment to infrastructure to the United States and also 50,000 jobs. After those two situations, now you have Ford. Now, what Ford is doing, they're going to cancel the plan on a $1.6 billion new plant construction in Mexico, bringing them 2,800 jobs. And instead, we're going to have 700 million invested into an existing plant to expand it. Now, the reason why there's an expansion or where there was a proposed plant was to build electric vehicles, which, of course, some see as a way of the future, which is a whole different story. And I digress off that point. The point is that jobs that were slated to go to Mexico, money that was slated to go to Mexico, will now be reinvested into the United States. Now, what I want to do right now is play some clips from an interview featuring Ford's CEO, a man named Mark Fields, and then he'll be able to kind of express what's going on and explain what's happening, because there were a few questions about, well, why is it just, 700 million versus the 1.6 billion that Mexico was getting? Why is there less jobs and et cetera, et cetera? He'll be able to break that down a little bit better than I do. So what we're going to do right now is go ahead and roll it. And then after we get done, I'll come back and give you some more information about the whole situation. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
The news this morning, Ford is canceling its plans for a $1.6 billion plant you were getting ready to build in Mexico. You're instead going to create 700 jobs at this plant. Why this decision?
Well, overall, it's around showing our commitment to electrified vehicles. What we're going to do today is we're going to confirm 7 of the 13 electrified vehicles that we committed to back a year or two ago in terms of investing $4.5 billion into developing those type of products. And the reason we're doing this here is because our view is electrification is going to grow. We want to be a leader there. We're investing in the products. And at the same time, we're investing here in the U.S. to build some of our most advanced products, both our fully electrified SUV that we're talking about today and our fully autonomous vehicle.
Did he make promises to Ford, things that he will do that will make it beneficial to your business to stay here and cancel that Mexico plant?
Well, this business decision was done independently, but we did speak to the president and the president-elect and the vice president-elect this morning. And this is really around making sure that as we make these decisions, that it's first right for our business to do this.
So what will they do to make it right for your business? Because, Mark, you've told me it costs you 40% less to build these cars in Mexico.
Well, we are really encouraged, again, by the pro-growth policies that he's outlined, particularly around reforms, around tax policy and regulatory policy. Those type of things I think, are going to generate a very positive business environment for investment here in the U.S.
Let's get specific on that. He wants to bring the corporate tax rate down to 15%. That helps you. What do you mean regulatory? Are you talking about fuel efficiency standards?
Well, overall fuel efficiency standards, but just overall regulatory burdens that are on businesses. And he has said very clearly he wants to create a very positive business environment for businesses to invest in the U.S. And we'll have to see how that rolls out. But again, this is a vote of confidence that we feel very good about that kind of direction and in making these kind of investment decisions.
So let's talk about the jobs. 2,800 jobs were slated to be added in Mexico through this $1.6 billion plant that is now canceled. Instead of that, you're going to create 700 jobs here. Yes. Why not as many jobs here as you were going to create in Mexico?
Well, first off, we have to understand the reason we are canceling our plant in Mexico, the main reason is because we're seeing a decline in demand for small vehicles here in North America. So as a company, we're always looking at our capacity and asking ourselves, where can we fully utilize it? So therefore, we're going to be producing the Focus in an existing plant in Mexico, so we don't have to build that new one and create those 2,800 jobs. And that's due to, just as we see demand for that segment of that type of vehicle.
It certainly has something to do with the fact that the president-elect has singled out Ford among automakers. Pretty much, he did tweet about GM today. But this is a trend we've seen. The president-elect calls out Carrier. He gets jobs to stay here. He calls out Boeing. He gets a cheaper Air Force One. He calls out Lockheed Martin, and they say, we're going to work with you. There is a concern among some, Mark, that this is, in essence, a form of crony capitalism that is dangerous to American democracy, that the president can cut deals with companies, and then they expect favors from the administration in return.
Well, first off, we didn't cut a deal with the president-elect. We did what's right for our business, first and foremost. That's what drives us in every business decision that we make. But we look at a lot of factors, Poppy, and one of the factors that we see is, again, this more positive U.S. Environment for manufacturing and investment here, and we take that into account in our investment decisions.
All right, so you're able to see what's going on there. You see what he's talking about. You see how they're going to build electrified vehicles. You see kind of what the numbers we're talking about. I think the young lady that was interviewing them was saying that it could be up to 40% less to produce the vehicles in Mexico. But see, when you have a president that is going to give you a favorable economic environment and also may punish you with the tariffs, I think there was another clip where you're talking about 35% tariffs, how that would be impactful upon the American citizen.
We all share the same objective. We want a strong U.S. economy. And as we look at something like a 35% tariff, I mean, clearly that would impact the entire auto sector as well as the U.S. economy.
With stuff like that going on, it just may make sense to go ahead and produce your vehicles here. Because if the demand is lower for the smaller vehicles, why build a bigger plant when you're going to spend more money? It may make sense to build a plant down there, even if there's a smaller demand, because at the end of the day, you still may end up making more money or making a lot more money versus the way it is now. It may kind of be equal, and it may kind of not even be worth all of the logistic trouble to go through building a very new plant and spending that kind of money right now. Really, if you're spending 1.6 billion versus 700 million, that's a save for the company, so they can keep some of that capital liquid in their coffers rather than just expending it and then trying to make it back on the back end. It makes perfect sense to me, and I think that's how business should be done. Mark Field said that there was no deal struck with Donald Trump. It just made sense as far as the environment that would be existing under Trump. You know, business friendly, but at the same time, maybe hostile to you if you're going to go out here and you're going to send jobs abroad rather than manufacturing your stuff here. So at the end of the day, I think it's a pretty good situation all in all for the American people. I've seen a lot of critiques because they're still going to have cars being built in Mexico. They're still going to build the Ford Focus down there in an existing plant. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can't escape globalism completely. But at the same time, I think that there should be some kind of balance. You can't just have everything being built over in Mexico, China, India, or whatever. I mean, do you know that there are no cell phones manufactured in the USA? You cannot purchase a cell phone that was made in America. You know, a lot of liberals talk about conservatives being Walmart shoppers, etc., talking about it's hypocritical. But I mean, they go to the Apple store, everything in there is pretty much made in China as well. The problem is not really trying to buy American, so to speak, or buy American. The problem is just trying to fight to get things produced here. You know, you got to be able to have things produced here to be able to purchase it here. You know, if you like cell phones and you want to have a cell phone, you cannot purchase American. It's not possible. There are no cell phones manufactured in the USA. It's pretty much all in China, maybe even in South Korea or something like that. Matter of fact, most of these major cell phone brands are like I think Lenovo. That's a Chinese brand. That's a straight Chinese brand that has no ties to America at all, except for the fact that they're sold here. But I digress. My whole point here is that this is good for the American people to have money and jobs invested into the American economy that would have otherwise gone elsewhere, Mexico, China, India, etc. So at the end of the day, I think it's a good deal, even if not perfect. So what do you think? Do you think that this deal, or not deal, but do you think this action by Ford is a good thing to bring jobs back to the U.S., to bring money back to the U.S., and also to have a vote of confidence in Trump and what his administration will be, and also in conservatism in general, as a break away from liberalism, which what we had for the past 8 years under Mr. Barack Obama, in which a lot of the metrics of poverty have increased, joblessness, poverty rate has gone up, the food stamp usage has gone up. A lot of those things have gone up under Obama. and we are to believe that we're in a recovery. I cannot tell. But do you think that this is bad for America? Do you think it is crony capitalism? Even though Mark Fields said that there was no deal struck with Donald Trump, some would still say it's crony capitalism because the carrier deal was a deal that was struck with Mike Pence because he's the governor of Indiana, of course, and that's where the actual plant was. Is it crony capitalism, or are you just trying to encourage jobs to stay here? Because if the deal was not struck with carrier, if Ford did not decide to bring jobs back, then it would just be gone. And at the end of the day, the main thing on many people's minds in America is the economy. How do I feed my family? How do I feed myself? How do I survive in America? How do I prevent from becoming homeless? I think that is the main thing in a lot of people's minds. So having any kind of jobs to come back, especially good jobs, auto industry and stuff like that, manufacturing jobs, I think it's a good thing overall for the American people. But there will be some that have a divergent point of view. Now, if that is your point of view, that this is not good, please explain to me why in the comments below. Give me a detailed explanation and I may respond. Because like I said before in previous videos, I'm not a one-sided person. I like to be able to hear all points of view, but I would challenge you to really find a flaw with what's going on here, especially since, as I close, there was no actual deal struck in this case with Ford. It was all about Ford looking at the situation and saying, okay, this move that we're going to make on our own makes the most sense for us. Therefore, when you look at it, all you can do is just critique their decision on independently, not as far as it being a joint thing between them and Trump and Pence or whoever. So whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. That's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.